Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Andrew.
I'm doing well.
Can you not see me?
We can't.
That just is not right.
We see your name, we know you're there, but we don't see your smiling face.
I don't understand, Mayor. It drives me crazy. I don't know how to change it. Let me see.
Anything from your end, Andrew?
No, it actually, her video is running.
Yeah.
Your camera is not running, is my
Oh.
guess.
Hello.
Yeah, hilarious. Do it.
Stop it. Stop
Hey,
it.
those covers are great. You just got to remember to take them off.
I forgot to pull the camera up. Those kids have been in here playing on my computer. They've been playing some kind of video game on it, so.
Well, you're lucky that you didn't turn into a cat like that attorney did.
I haven't seen that. That would be funny. Shoo-wee. David should be here pretty soon. I think he grabbed a sandwich. It's all good.
We'll give him just another couple of minutes.
How you feeling, Stace?
I'm doing good. Thank you.
Good. You feeling good, Andrew?
Yeah, it's been a week, and I mean this is a big moment. So, feel like puking a little bit. It'll be all right in 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah. COVID still affecting you like that?
No. This is nerves. This is all just.
Why are you nervous? Well, you don't want to say that on public. Never mind.
Yeah.
Well, I just got back from Florida, so I'm good. I know.
Where I wish I was right now.
Yeah, I understand Ted Cruz took a vacation somewhere.
Yeah, but I'm not.
It's different.
No, I'm not. That's funny. People, I was going to show you all a picture. Hang on a second. While we're waiting on David. And I hate tax season. Does anybody else hate tax season besides me? That's what we're talking about today, is taxes, but I don't like them.
I mean, I don't like owing taxes, but yeah.
Sweet girl. I can't believe that that's what we came home to. You can't see it. You may not be able to see this picture. It was so beautiful. So can you see that? You can't see that because of the
I see palm trees. Yeah.
palm trees. Yeah.
But it's
So this was my Valentine's dinner on the beach.
nice.
It was really nice. It was fun. We did it last year too. 3 days is good. I could have, we got laid over for a day. If I could have talked right into it, I'd be there today and talking to you on my phone. For sure.
I'm texting David. He's having trouble finding the invite. I've resent it to him.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, because I think we possibly have a pretty large audience today. It's not just us.
There he is.
Do we know who all's on there with us?
We've invited the entire council and others.
It's just us on the meeting.
Okay,
There are people watching on YouTube.
okay.
Hi, world.
Hey there.
Hey,
Okay. We're all here, Andrew, and we're live and
Live
streaming.
and recording. It's a live meeting and it's all yours.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. And
yeah,
Good afternoon.
yeah, now, Connie, David, I know that one of you all formerly serve as chair of the Finance Committee. I think you all pass it back and forth. But if you all would like to get the meeting started, I'd be glad to begin with what we have to present to you all today.
Okay, well, David and I co-chair, but David, you go ahead.
no, Mayor, just asking for, Mayor, you asking for permission to proceed?
And we say
What do you
proceed.
think? Can we give him permission? Maybe this one time. Yes, Mayor, absolutely.
Please.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is actually a very important meeting of the Finance Committee, and it precedes a very important council meeting that we'll have this coming Monday night. And we've got a lot of information to share with the Finance Committee today. I think I probably surprised or at least got the attention of all of the city council members at the last meeting with some of the steps that I indicated that I was going to bring very quickly. And I just wanted to be very forthright and candid and transparent in what that was going to look like. So now we begin the difficult task of actually working our way through all the information that I told the council we would bring. David, Connie, let me first say how pleased I am that we're now in a position to pick back up the urgent conversation that we were engaged in a year ago. At this point, a year ago, we were having conversations between the council with the community. I think we had established a need for the city, and we're having very productive conversations about what that remedy might look like. We had not reached a conclusion about what that would be, but we had moved well along the path of doing the research and acknowledging that we had things that we needed to address for the city. So we're excited to be able to pick up on those conversations that we kind of put on the shelf while we dealt with the COVID crisis. And now we think it's time to readdress those. I mentioned right as you were getting on, David, that we hope we have a broader audience than just what is in our meeting today. We've invited the rest of the city council to observe this meeting, either live or since we're recording it and it will be on our YouTube channel, we can encourage council members to watch it at their leisure or members of the public to watch it at their leisure. And it's going to be the same information that we present to the council again Monday night. And I just apologize for the fact that we're going to give it to you 2 different times, but we think it's important enough and a great enough quantity of information that it requires. Here in a
It'd
couple.
be helpful. It'd be helpful to all of us.
Yes, sir. So that's kind of what we're thinking for today. We would like to, I want to be real clear about the 4 things we would like to accomplish today. I think we have 4 big things that I've told the council that we would discuss and we would bring them more detailed information on Monday. The first is our amended budget. And Stacy has been hard at work on the amended budget. we have desperately needed more information, and the committee has been anxious for this information. When we put this budget together 6 months ago or 7 months ago, we were doing so in the fog of not having enough information. So what we're able to do today, and what we take to the council Monday with your recommendation, hopefully, is provide an update that gives us needed clarity. We'll incorporate, with the amended budget, you'll see that we incorporate our CARES money, and we give a much more accurate picture of what our budget situation looks like in real life, so we can prepare for the next budget.
Yeah.
Second thing we want to do, a year ago, we were working on policy based on a financial analysis that we had completed. And we promised you that we would update that financial analysis. And we've done that. We've made fresh projections going out 5 years. And we've tried to get freshened information about our salary information and what we need to do there. So we will go over with you what those financial projections look like to pick up the conversation that we had a year ago.
Okay.
Third thing is to explain in better detail about a proposed increase to the insurance premium tax from 5% to 8%. One of the things we want to go through in detail today about what that would look like, again, what the deadlines are, the amount of funds it would generate, and how we would propose in a very, very broad form what those funds would be used for. And then finally, we want to give an explanation of how a gross receipts tax works in concept and how it might apply to the city of Georgetown in lieu of a net profits tax. So 4 very distinct things, each of which will require us to provide you some information and then have some conversation about every one of those. I wanted to assure the committee and anybody that's watching that this committee can take no final actions today other than recommend things to the full council. And the council will not be asked to take any final actions on Monday. But we are moving toward providing the information with the expectation of action at some point. Everything we'll discuss today will come back to the full city council for a decision. And I thought what we could do is let Stacy first help us get through the amended budget, which will give us, I think, the clarity we need. And then I'd like to set the stage a little bit for the next 3 items that we'll have there to address. So Stacy, I'll turn it over to you. I have the benefit of some budget documents that will be presented to the council in their packet later today. But Stacy, you'll be walking us through those, and I assume screen share.
Yes. First, I want to start actually, as the mayor mentioned, our biggest objective with this budget amendment was to look at our revenue projections. So I want to share a couple of things with you that I did in helping with that. First, there is the quarterly revenue report that I share with council each quarter that looks at our 5 biggest revenues. And I want to share that with you to look at a couple of the ones that we're making the largest adjustments to. And then I'll also show you the worksheet that I did where I reviewed all revenues. And that'll kind of lay the groundwork for the budget amendment. And then we'll quickly go over some of the other expense items and things that have been included. So first, I wanted to share, council will get this on Monday as well. We'll email it to them before the council meeting, and I will go over it with them. But obviously, payroll tax is our largest revenue category. And we had reduced this budget at the time last year to 10.1 million because we were not sure how the pandemic would impact our local economy and businesses, especially those in the manufacturing world. We didn't know how it would impact them. Thankfully, it did not impact us as much as we were worried that it might. And you can see here the first 6 months of this fiscal year, which would be July to December 2020, compared to July to December 2019. And you can see this number here on line 24, we're actually ahead of where we were at this time last year. So what I have recommended in the budget amendment is increasing this 10.1 million budget up to 12.5 million. So an increase of $2.4 million. That's probably still a conservative estimate, but it puts us about close to what we budgeted last year, and we will see how the rest of the year unfolds. So that's the first revenue, the largest revenue that you're going to see a recommendation to increase.
That's still a fairly, I mean, based on what you know at the moment, that's a very realistic or conservative
Yes.
estimate as well. Still good. Okay.
Yes, I feel it's conservative, but we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah.
Net profits, switch tabs here. We had budgeted $1,050,000. We typically budget anywhere from 1.3 to 1.5 million in this account. So we did reduce that projection. I've not recommended a change in the budget amendment for this one. This is every year, this is our most uncertain revenue category. We never quite know what we're going to get. We don't know what receipts will come in. We don't know what credits are owed at the end of the year. But for receipts, what you can see here, we'll talk about this 1.2 that it's the top and the bottom in just a second, but truly this highlighted area of 552,816 is really our true receipts from July to December for net profits. You'll see in December, there's a much larger net profits receipts than we typically get. So I'm wondering if those were perhaps some 2019 tax returns that had been extended and probably filed late, because we normally don't see quite that big of a number that early in the year. Typically, our next biggest months would be April and May, obviously with our typical tax deadline of April 15th. That's not here yet, and we don't yet know the full impact of the pandemic on the 2020 profits of our local businesses. We'll see that more in a couple of months. And then, as I mentioned, the 1.2 million that you see in July, and you'll notice a negative in June of the year before with that same number, that is businesses who have a credit on their net profits tax return, who have not asked for a refund. So they carry a credit balance with us until a future return would have them owing taxes, and then hopefully we can begin to reduce that credit. So we kind of, with this one, it's a matter of kicking the can down the road. We keep hoping we can recognize the revenue in a given year, but as you can see, for the last 5 years, we're still carrying that credit balance. So I went ahead and, assuming those businesses do not have profits for their 2020 returns, I'm just showing that negative at the bottom in June again, assuming we continue to carry that forward.
Well,
But again, this one, yes.
has it just been 5 years? I mean, I say just, that's a long time, obviously, but is that the number?
Yeah, if we go back here to fiscal year 17 and we look at June, the credit balance number was 928,000. And then it's grown just to, let me do that. Yeah, I'd fix that, undo. Sorry, that's what happens when you're working with your live Excel document. And then it's kind of grown to this year being 1.2 or 2020. In 2019, I don't have it broken out number by number, but I believe it was just a little over 1 million. So the credit balance has actually grown just a little bit over the last 5 years.
Is it because they send in estimates or it's recalculated and, you know,
It's,
confirmed
yeah,
differently?
we do have some entities that pay estimated balances on a quarterly basis. The ones who have very large credit balances quit paying estimated payments a few years ago because they have such a large credit balance.
Right.
So they didn't want to add to the credit.
Yeah.
So, and then like I said,
I'm trying to understand how it goes up.
well, yeah, it just, it would probably also be some new businesses that have been added, maybe businesses that didn't have a credit before get added. And I do have that information. Of course, it's not something we can share publicly, but the Revenue Commission has a list that their auditors do every year to combine who makes up the credit balance. So we actually know exactly which companies make up this credit balance. And we track that. So,
Okay.
but for now, I'm not recommending a change to this revenue category because it is just so uncertain. We could hit $1 million or it could be something less. We don't know.
Okay.
Insurance premium tax. This is the next largest category that I'm recommending an increase to. As you can see, in fiscal year 2020, we brought in a little over 3.3 million. We are about 74,000, almost 75,000 ahead of where we were at this time last year for 2 quarters. So for July through December, we had reduced this budget a little bit because we weren't certain of how that would work. We knew some insurance companies were giving refunds to their customers. But at the end of the day, I think we'll be on target to bring in just a little bit above what we did last year. So I'm recommending that we increase this budget to 3.4 million, which I believe is about a $592,000 increase. So that's one of the revised, that's the second largest increase in our revenue categories that I'm recommending. And then lastly, the only other big one of these is property taxes. Through December, we had brought in 1,884,000. And then on the next sheet that I show you, you'll see that I'm recommending increasing our property tax budget to what our actual receipts have been to date. So I'm going to close this one and bring up my other sheet. And I think I may have shared this with 2 of you via email. Can't recall. I know I shared it with the mayor and Andrew. So this is just where I went through the report that we just looked through, our quarterly report. I'm only showing the receipts through December. But this report that I used for the budget amendment actually goes through, I think, Tuesday. It would have gone through receipts through Tuesday. So it's a little newer, a little more up-to-date data. So again, with property taxes, I'm just adjusting it for actual receipts. And a tiny bit above because we know we'll bring in just a little bit more. Bank deposit franchise, ABC licenses, again, adjusting those revenues up based on what we've actually received so far this year. We've already talked about payroll taxes. This is a small adjustment on penalty and interest for net profits returns. Again, just bringing it up to actual receipts. Building permits, I wasn't confident in increasing this yet. In recent years, we have brought in over 400,000 in building permits. So I know we reduced that budget by 25 to 30% when we were making our projections. And it is still running lower than past years. So it's possible we could come in over.
I got some updates from Jim last week and I should have shared it, but building permits are way down. So it's a number we can talk about. But I would not, that is not likely to
Yeah.
increase.
That's why I left it alone, because I didn't have enough confidence of how far up it could go. Sometimes once we hit the warmer months, they pick up a little, but we are behind last year. We've already talked about insurance license fees. This is a small adjustment to franchise fees from Bluegrass Energy based on our average receipts that we're getting per month or per quarter. These were a couple that I just made notes on that I didn't quite feel comfortable increasing. Franchise fees for KU and for garbage collection, they could go over budget, but for example, our franchise fees from KU, they are trending lower than last year on a quarter by quarter basis. And I think I put by about 130,000. It's possible we could still go over the budgeted number, but they are trending lower than last year. I'm sure due to companies not being able to shut off. And so a lot of bills are going unpaid right now, I'm sure. Police services, I'm actually reducing by 29,000. This is an estimated reduction because we have not had an SRO in the schools every day. Normally, we have 2 SROs. We pay for one of them and the school reimburses us for one of them. But if they're not having in-person school, the SRO is not there, we're not getting reimbursed that salary. So that's a reduction for that. Code enforcement fines and abatement revenue, I'm just combining the accounts. We had tried separating them out at one point, but the tracking for that, when those receipts come in, it is easier to just keep them in one account. And then we run the account history, and we obviously give each jurisdiction the revenue that belongs to them. So having 2 accounts isn't the most efficient. House Bill 413 cost. These have been about half of what they normally are per quarter. So I reduced this down to 16,000. Like I said, we're averaging 4,000 a quarter right now. I'm sure there's a lot of court cases that are getting, with the pandemic, are not happening as quickly. And lastly, this one, I think I just, this is a fairly new thing that we do for 125 West Clinton, the operating costs for that building. They have their own section of accounts, and I had just failed to budget for the county's half of that revenue. So that's why we have revenue in it, but we didn't have a budget. So I'm just filling in that missing budget item, which comes up to the 3.2 million that you'll see in the budget amendment that we're increasing our revenue.
So would we add the 3.2 onto the 15.2 or 3? Is that?
Well, our budget was about 20
20.
mil. Well, yeah, 20,630,000, and I'm adding 3,275,680.
But are you adding the 3 million to the 20 or to the 15?
Yes, the 3 million to the 20. The 20.6 is our budget. The 15.2 is just what we've brought in through today. So we're actually at 74% of our general fund budget collected.
Okay.
Because our budget was low. That's why the collected percentage is so high.
So it gets
So
us
we're gonna
close to
increase that.
24 million then.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing on this one, and I will bring up the actual budget amendment. Got it. Got too many windows open. Okay, here we go. So this is what you'll actually see, and this is the easiest way to look at it. Of course, you also have a memo that goes with this and the actual ordinances, but this is the easiest way to look at it. So when we adopted the budget and then we amended it in September. So after the September amendment, we had estimated that we were going to use 4.6 million of reserves or fund balance to balance this year's budget. This first section, previously approved transactions, as you can see, most of these have municipal order numbers at the end or a resolution number. to show when council took that action. So we had increased senior citizens budget. We gave parks the money that we had in escrow for the Cephaletta repairs. At the last meeting, we had just approved the purchase of the Broadway property and the fire truck repairs. And we sold the property at Frogtown Road. And then these last two line items just reflect our expenses related to that property sale. We have a realtor's fee and giving the county half of the proceeds. New request, we've discussed the revised revenue projections in detail. The next two line items here, this is the amount of police and fire salaries and benefits that we are able to defer to the grant fund because of our CARES Act money that we're getting. So for fiscal year 2021, we will have $842,576 of CARES Act money in the grant fund that will be used for first responder salaries and benefits as shown. Fire department asked for some increases in operating line items. Most of these were due to two things. They did bring on a new recruit class, so they had some additional physicals that needed to be done, additional uniforms that needed to be purchased, not just replaced. And then cleaning and safety equipment are obviously related to the pandemic and having to spend a lot more there than anticipated. They had requested body armor. Eric indicated in his memo that he had spoken with the fire committee and the mayor about that in the past. They did seek a grant for that and did not get it. The actual cost is about $35,000, so they've requested $20,000 towards that, and he said he would pull the rest from his other budgetary line items. And lastly, we are going to try to go ahead and replace the Assistant Chief of Prevention's vehicle. It's a 2014 with a lot of miles on it, and we're going to see if it's possible to find something on the lot, on a dealer lot that would be suitable. So there would be 3 to 4 months worth of payments, depending on whether we're able to find that. If we can't find something on a dealer lot, then this will get pushed into next year's budget with our other vehicle purchases. Public Works has requested an additional funding for an additional 600 tons of salt. And this is at the rate that we established in the reverse auction, which was actually, I believe it was around $60 some a ton, which is a really good price. So it's always good to go ahead and buy that when we have a low per ton cost and go ahead and stock our salt barns back up. When I spoke to him earlier this week, they'd already emptied one salt barn and we're about to head to the other. So we'd like to stock our salt barns back up because next year when we do this reverse auction in May, because everybody has used so much salt, usually the price goes up. So we'd rather buy it now at a lower cost and have it for next winter. And the transfer to the cemetery fund, you'll see he's requested about $15,000 of additional expenses. Our half of that would be $7,500. We'll go over that in a minute. The business park fund, there's a few cleanup items. We had purchased the Marshall property for some additional expansion. We asked HDR to do a subdivision plat for the business park for engineering. There were some minor sidewalk repairs we had to do out around the Scariot building. I think when we were doing the expansion, some of the sidewalks may have gotten torn up a little bit, so we had to fix those. And then this was just the final payment to HDR for the expansion engineering. So again, just cleanup items. And this is all coming out of funds that had already been transferred for the expansion project. The property purchase is coming out of the money that Toyota gave us, the $1 million. We still had about half of that, around half of that maybe left. So that's coming out of that. And so no new revenues had to be put into that. The grant fund, as previously mentioned, we have the CARES Act funding, so we're adding that in. And we also recently approved a bulletproof vest grant, so just bringing that in for some cleanup. The cemetery fund, he has requested, he's had some unexpected equipment breakdowns that he didn't anticipate in his budget. And then professional services for his temp help. He was having, he was having trouble getting his temp help. It's just Gene and one other employee out there. So a lot of our grounds work is done through a temp agency, and they had to increase the hourly rate a little bit to be able to get help. They were having trouble getting help. So that's what that budget increase is. And we split that with the county. Lastly, capital projects fund, that's just a cleanup item. We had a deduct on the Walmart project and needed to refund that money to the developers who contributed to the project. So any questions on the budget amendment?
Nope.
Yeah, the budget
And-
is largely a mathematical exercise.
Yeah.
It's I think Stacy's done some, I think her calculations on the increased revenue are, I think they're appropriate for right now. That they're not too aggressive and not too conservative, but I was real comfortable with the way she restated those revenues. And then it just follows math. It gives us so the clarity that I mentioned. It moves us from where we started a budget year with the daunting understanding that we had a $4.6 million deficit budget, and through better than expected revenues and some other steps we've taken, what we're presenting now will have a general fund deficit that is now down to $686,000. So I think that's a very helpful clarity for the council, rather than just stumbling around in the dark with an unknown huge deficit. We now, I think, can focus our attention a lot better with a known deficit at this point.
So 686 is kind of the magic number now. It's not the 1.1 at the bottom of the screen, then, is it?
Correct. No, that 1.1 is strictly the capital projects fund. I don't total all the funds together since they have their own individual fund balances that we pull from. So for the general fund for the 2021 budget, we have a deficit of 686,000. And again, this is not our fund balance number. This is just our budgetary deficit for 1 year.
So my question is, we have an additional $3,275,000. This 686,742 is really all we're pulling out of our fund balance instead of the 4.6?
Yes, that's our current estimate of what we'll pull out of fund balance.
Okay, thank you. That sounds good.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that was one of the big numbers that we just had to understand better, Connie.
Yeah.
Before we could take any future step, we had to get a more solid number there. That
Right.
was real.
That's good. That's good news.
It'd be better news if it was zero, but it's a manageable number and
Oh.
a number that we think is is real. So
Absolutely.
so the other documents that Stacy will provide you is of course a summary of the ordinance, and then a copy of that budget amendment summary that she just walked you through is probably the most helpful document that you'll have. Any questions about what is expected to be presented for the amended budget?
I think she's got us both on board as co-sponsors, and
Yeah.
that was very, very helpful to go through it the way you did there, Stacy. And as the mayor said, it's good news. Better if it was zero, but
Yeah.
heck of a
It's
lot better than
manageable.
it could have been.
Yes. Much better than we started.
And it's still conservative.
Yes.
It is conservative, and Connie, what this shows me is that the committee was correct to be patient with this. It was hard to be patient,
Mhm.
but it was the right course of action. So I appreciate the committee kind of staying the course on that. Okay, Stacy, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see. Gosh, that was, of the four things we have to do today, that was the easiest. And I think that one only took us 40 minutes. No, I say that mostly in jest. Where we are now is I think the next step that we want to do is begin to show you our financial projections for the next 5 years in a very broad fashion. And I want to emphasize that what we're getting ready to show you is really a macro analysis. This has not been done with a fine tooth, with a fine pointed pencil. We're going to have some values that are included in the 5-year projections that are essentially placeholders. So we can understand the magnitude of expenses that we face, not to a decimal point accuracy, but to understand in general terms the type of expenses that we're going to have to say grace over. That will allow us to make this spreadsheet again in pretty broad terms so that we can look at this from a more 30,000 foot level. Again, I emphasize that City Council will have the opportunity to come back and address every one of these proposals in a specific way. A year ago, we had established, I think, a consensus that we had real needs within the city through comparing ourselves to our peer cities and looking at our own 20-year history, that we had some real operational concerns. And we'll review some of these with you again, but we had pretty much established that Georgetown had less per capita tax revenue than any of our peers. That resulted in less money being spent on public safety than most of our peers. And the math showed that we had some substantial gaps to make up. Now that we're ready to readdress this again, I just want to make sure we understand or that I communicate well to the council. My job is to make everyone aware of circumstances and what our options might be, and then help the council with a conversation about their best choice for how we move that forward. What I do want to communicate to the council on Monday night and begin today is that our status quo is not sustainable. And our status quo in terms of funding has led us to what I consider to be a crisis today. And as we reestablish this need and refresh this analysis, I just want to emphasize for the council that our circumstances are dire, and we have public safety needs that need to be addressed. Much of this, I hope, is just math. It's if we decide what an acceptable level of service is, then we can project for you what that will cost. And that's just math. And I think what Andrew has helped us with that we're going to see next is a video. It's a 15-minute, 50-second video, or at least it was. It's been slightly edited. And the video is a PowerPoint presentation that Andrew has narrated. We chose to present this boatload of information to you in this fashion because with Andrew's narration, it lets us get entirely through the presentation and it lets us mow through a lot of data. Then what I'll pledge to you is we'll go back and we'll be glad to dissect and discuss each of those frames with you. what you'll see during this next video is an update of our analysis, the projections, and some numbers on how we might achieve the goal. So Andrew, is there anything else you'd like to proceed before you play this particular video that should help us address items 2 and 3 on our agenda?
No, just I've got it queued up. You all, I'm gonna mute my video and turn my camera off. You all let me know if you can't hear it. We've done this a few times and it's worked every time, but you just never know with technology.
And Andrew, can you do that share screen so it's big?
Absolutely.
Andrew, we don't have any audio.
Technology. Don't you just love
Having
it?
some technological difficulties here. Hold on. I think the problem is that if I'm muted, you don't hear my. So I'm going to start over here and then try this again. How about that? One more time. You hear it now?
No.
It's not sharing the screen for some reason. All right. Take 3. We may have to try it with the PowerPoint, which it's worked before, but we'll see what's going on. Still nothing?
No, your initial slide stayed up for a while, but then that drops in.
You're not hearing any sound.
We're hearing no sound.
All right. My apologies. Here's what we're going to do. I should have.
Got your camera on? No.
Yeah, right. I should have tested this on this PC. Well, we've done this before, but we are having some technical difficulties.
I'll be right back.
So yeah, give me just a minute, and I'll see if there's an audio setting that's the problem.
And Andy, if that technical solution doesn't work, we can play the video, and I've got the script here.
Sure.
You can simply read the script along with.
Right. All right. Okay, let's try this. The city of Georgetown faces an historic revenue shortfall, a product of changing demographics and a mismatched tax structure. Last year, we gave a detailed presentation of the city's demographics, historical and comparative revenues, public safety expenditures, and the financial outlook. We urge you to review this presentation, which is available on our website, www.georgetownky.gov. Before we take a deeper look at the city's revenue needs, let's briefly recap the situation. Adjusted for inflation, the city's general fund revenues per capita are half as much as 20 years ago. In other words, the city's population has doubled, while its spending power has remained the same. Georgetown's 2018 revenues per capita were roughly 2/3 of its peers' average, creating a gap of almost $10 million. Georgetown lags the peer average in all three major tax categories, creating a gap of $7.5 million. Note how Georgetown's general fund tax structure compares to the rest of Kentucky. In particular, property taxes account for a comparatively smaller portion of total tax revenues, making Georgetown heavily reliant on occupational license taxes. Adjusted for inflation, general fund salary spending is down 33% over 20 years, while non-salary personnel costs are up 72%. In the last 22 years, the city's population has increased by 126%, and the incorporated area has increased by 75%. In that same period, the number of police has not changed, and the number of firefighters has increased by only 28%. Adjusted for inflation, the city's general fund budget is only 22% higher. Retirement contributions account for 10% of the city's total general fund budget. And between 2018 and 2025, hazardous duty rates will have increased by 82% and non-hazardous rates by 60%. Georgetown's 3-year general fund average expenditures is $24.6 million. 53% of the expenditures went to salary, benefits, taxes. 17.9% went to shared interlocal expenses for county-run departments. 20.6% was spent on utilities, fuel, liability insurance and claims, vehicles, professional services, maintenance, and debt service. Each year, the city gives an average of $400,000 to community partners such as the Amen House and the Senior Center. Another $422,000 is dedicated to the cemetery and stormwater. 4.2%, or just over $1 million, goes to equipment, computer hardware and software, training, supplies, uniforms, code abatement, travel, printing, and advertising. That leaves just $151,000 for all other miscellaneous expenses, which includes things such as postage, K-9 unit and bike patrol, grant matches, fire prevention, and tax and fee refunds. The police department's 3-year average expenditures were $5.3 million, or 21.7% of total general fund expenditures. 83.6% of police department expenditures went to salaries, retirement, benefits, taxes, and workers' compensation. Another 14.7% went to vehicles, fuel, maintenance, liability and insurance claims, utilities, training, equipment, and professional services, leaving only $89,000 for all other miscellaneous department expenses. At 1.62 full-time police officers per 1,000 residents, the police department is now 27 officers short of the FBI national standard and 20 officers short of its peers' average. The $5,000 raises council awarded last year have helped bring Georgetown's starting police officer salary closer to the peer average, but they are still roughly $3,500 lower. This salary gap only tells part of the story, as many other jurisdictions also offer benefits such as longevity bonuses, shift differential pay of up to $1.50 per hour, sign-on bonuses, reimbursement of college tuition, higher pay for college degrees, and cash for unused personal days. Many also follow salary schedules that employ a combination of cost of living and longevity increases. Our research indicates the majority of jurisdictions offer the same or better benefits than Georgetown. Chief Mike Bossi believes a highly competitive starting salary is critical to recruiting the best quality officers in the area and requests that the starting salaries for new officers be set at $49,500, including the $4,000 incentive, with an equal raise for all ranks. The cost of this increase for existing employees is approximately $330,000. Salaries for police management lag the peer average by higher margins than for officers. Future salary adjustments may need to account for longevity and rank. At current wages, it costs the city on average $87,000 annually for each new police officer hire. The total budgetary increase for adding 15 new officers would be $1.3 million. The fire department's 3-year average expenditures were $5.8 million, or 23.6% of total general fund expenditures. 84.9% of fire department expenditures went to salaries, retirement, benefits, taxes, and workers' compensation. Another 13.3% went to vehicles, fuel, maintenance, liability and insurance claims, utilities, training, equipment, and professional services, leaving only $105,000 for all other miscellaneous department expenses. At 1.57 firefighters per 1,000 residents, the fire department is 8 firefighters short of the NFPA national average and 22 firefighters short of its peers' average. The city's first-year firefighter salary lags the peer average by around $4,600. Georgetown's most comparable peer city, Richmond, starts firefighters at just under $51,000. Even the city's average firefighter salary of $45,734 is lower than the starting salary peer average. As with the police department, salary is not the only factor in competitiveness. Other jurisdictions can entice recruits with guaranteed salary schedules, tuition reimbursement, and longevity bonuses. Chief Eric Colson recommends that first-year firefighter pay be equalized with the police department, requiring a $6,920 increase and a corresponding raise be given to all positions and ranks. The cost of this adjustment is $600,000 annually. Like the police department, the salary gap between Georgetown and its peers' average increases as you move up the ranks of the fire department. Future salary adjustments may need to account for longevity and rank. Including salaries, benefits, retirement, allowances, uniform, and personal fire gear, it costs the city on average $75,701 a year to hire a new firefighter at current wages. One-time costs for training and equipment for each employee are $8,743. The total budget increase for 15 new firefighters would be $1.2 million. Like police and fire, Public Works is severely short-staffed. The department needs at minimum 2 additional workers and 2 additional CDL drivers. More importantly, we are having trouble attracting and retaining employees because our workers and drivers are finding better pay in the private sector. Director Robert Bruin requests that new workers be raised to $15 an hour and drivers to $18 an hour, and that all other positions be raised correspondingly. The cost of these salary adjustments is roughly $144,000, and the cost of 4 new public works employees at the new hourly rates would be about $148,000. The city engineer and the city's stormwater consultant have recently completed an analysis of the city's annual stormwater operations and have developed a projected budget. They estimate the city needs $549,500 in labor, stormwater quality maintenance, and MS4 permit costs, and up to $860,000 a year for debt service to fund capital construction costs. They have also identified the need for a vacuum truck at a cost of $350,000. A detailed presentation on their findings and the prospects of a stormwater utility fee to fund this budget will be coming in the next few months. The city needs to construct several major capital projects over the course of the next 2 to 6 years. Regardless of the city's plans to modernize City Hall, the limestone facade of the century-old building needs to be stabilized at an estimated cost of $2.2 million. As more new homes are built off Old Oxford Road, concerns from residents over the former county road's safety are increasing. And even when the road is improved to modern city standards, its intersection with Connector Road will always prove an issue. Extending Lexus Way to Old Oxford will provide much needed relief to over 1,500 homes in planned and existing neighborhoods like Villages at Lanes Run, Cherry Blossom Village, Oxford Manor, Oxford Estates, Oxford Village, and the Abbey at Old Oxford. Fixing traffic safety issues in the Old Oxford area is estimated to cost $12 million. The city has applied for a federal build grant to fund these projects for 3 straight years, but it is clear the grant will not be funded. With the explosive growth that has occurred over the last 20 years, the city needs a 4th fire station. Constructing the station and purchasing new trucks and equipment is anticipated to cost $8 to $10 million. Some of these costs could be offset by combining the new station with the county's planned new EMS facility, but doing so will likely move up the timeline for construction. To bring the city in line with its peers, alleviate critical staffing shortages, pay for state-mandated CERS increases, and complete necessary capital projects, the city will need substantial new revenues. Increasing police, fire, and public works salaries for current employees has an annual price tag of just over $1 million. Over the next 3 years, the city needs to add 15 new police officers, 15 new firefighters, and 4 new public works employees. By year 3, these changes alone will have increased the city's annual revenue needs by $3.4 million. Scheduled rate increases for retirement contributions for current employees will increase the budgetary needs by another $1.2 million. Fully funding street and stormwater maintenance costs will increase revenue needs by another $850,000. If the city is to complete necessary capital projects, it will need to borrow the funds and increase its debt service allocation by up to $1.9 million. Over the next 5 years, the city needs to increase its total general fund revenues an average of $7 million a year. The city has numerous and diverse practical options for increasing general fund revenues. Those that could have the greatest impact on the budget include increasing the insurance premium tax, changing from a net profits to a gross receipts tax, increasing the payroll tax, and levying a stormwater utility fee. To be implemented fairly and legally, options such as the stormwater utility fee and development impact fees require detailed analysis of many factors. Other less impactful changes, such as levying a higher property tax rate for abandoned urban property, should be considered. Due to inflexible and outdated tax laws, property taxes cannot be increased to provide substantial new revenues for the city. A restaurant tax could offset some general fund expenses and provide some much-needed beautifications and parks improvements, but it would not provide direct general fund revenues. Privatizing garbage collection would not affect the general fund, as sanitation is self-funded under a separate fund and currently breaks even. Privatization would not generate substantial franchise revenues. However, there may be other practical reasons to privatize. Georgetown's insurance premium tax rate is 61% of its peers' average, and 62% of the average of all cities within the Bluegrass Area Development District. Over half the cities in the Bluegrass ad have a rate of at least 8%. 9 cities, including Paris, Nicholasville, and Stadieville, have a 10% rate. Increasing the insurance premium tax rate to 8% would provide the city with estimated additional annual revenues of $2 million. If the city intends to implement the rate increase effective July 1, 2021, it must adopt the ordinance and notify the Department of Insurance not later than March 23rd. Otherwise, it cannot increase the rate until July of 2022. We have prepared a separate presentation outlining some inequities in Georgetown's current net profits tax. In summary, changing to a gross receipts tax could significantly increase revenues and ensure all businesses are paying their fair share of the occupational license tax. Recall that Georgetown is one of only a handful of Kentucky cities whose residents are not able to credit their city payroll taxes against county payroll taxes. Almost 90% of Georgetown's peer cities have a payroll tax exceeding 1%. Increasing the payroll tax would increase annual revenues between $3.2 and $6.5 million. Of course, the city cannot complete its revenue needs analysis without also undertaking a review of department operations for opportunities to save costs, increase efficiencies, and capture lost revenues. While our list is a work in progress, staff have already identified 19 initiatives that could help offset a small percentage of the identified revenue needs. All right. It turns out having my headphones plugged in was the culprit there. I had to actually play it over the speakers, so hopefully you all were able to hear it a little. You were able to hear all of the.
I think we were able to hear it, Andrew. Of course, I'd had the benefit of hearing it before, and that always makes a second listen easier to do. There's a ton of information in there, Connie and David. There's financial analysis, there's projections, there's different revenue options. I'd be glad to take your questions and go back to any of the slides that Andrew presented. And in fact, if you want, I'm happy for us to go back and quickly click through all of them to see if it prompts questions for you. But what I want to get your feelings on are, given where we were a year ago in this process, have we updated our data sufficiently and communicated well enough to the full council what our needs are or what we believe our needs to be?
I think
I haven't changed a whole lot, Mayor. Do you think because of COVID that these numbers, I know they're estimates, but do you think they could be higher, like the City Hall exterior stabilization and renovation could possibly be higher because construction costs are higher? Because this was a year old, right?
Yeah,
Actually, about 4 years old.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, those could change, Connie. But in terms of estimating debt service cost,
Yeah.
we hope that they're within the range enough to at least give you some numbers to work from.
From 1999 to 2021, 1999, we had 57 police officers in this information I have. In 2021, we actually have 56. But firefighters, we had 43 in 1999. In 2021, we have 56. So I see a huge need there, especially with the increase in the residents and the square miles.
Yeah, Connie, we truly believe that this is at a dangerous level for our ability to provide for us to continue to provide the level of public safety that we pride ourselves on.
Mhm.
Our people are bending over backwards to get the job done today, and they're getting it done. But I believe we're at the point where these should be serious considerations.
There's definitely things that we need to do. I'm thinking, and I don't know, you can correct me if you think I'm wrong, but maybe trying to go ahead and start implementing or working on the insurance premium tax and recommend bringing that to council to increase to the I think it's $2,020,000 or something like that, but it's $2 million that we could start, at least from what we had promised the employees, that we could work on the salaries and get that to where they need to be as we move forward because of the deadline. For sure, I think it's something that we do need to look at and do it at the 8%. And then, educate the rest of us, the rest of the council on the other options that we have in order to move forward and try to work on these capital projects that we got going. I know I've been being beat up on Old Oxford in traffic committee, and it's not getting any safer. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts on all of this that we've talked about.
You're correct in that. Looking at the big portions of this and how they relate to each other, if we follow through on completing our salary increases to begin on the July 1st, 21 budget year, and we begin our effort to add the head count by adding firefighters, fire police officers, and 2 public works officers. We know that we increase our expenditures by around $2 million.
Right.
To achieve what we think needs to be done in the next budget year. The 3% increase in the insurance premium tax raises a like amount of money. So it does seem very logical, and it is something that, as I indicated to the council at the last meeting, that I would bring them a proposal for an increase to the insurance premium tax. And given the timeline that we have, I would ask that we actually bring a first reading to the council Monday night.
I could agree to that for sure. We know we're going to have to do something, and we need something in this 2021 budget that we're getting ready to work on.
And Connie, to those who might think that's, or might say that I'm asking the council to move too quickly on an issue of that size, I would point out that we've been aware of these issues now for a year, and we kind of suspended our consideration. And the deadline to make this decision known to the state is the 23rd. We have to not only complete the passage of this ordinance, but have it publicized. And if we have first reading at our next meeting, then we can have second reading at a regularly scheduled meeting of the council, the first meeting of March. And that would let us have passage during a regularly scheduled council meeting rather than a called council meeting. And there's not a lot of difference there, but I would feel better if the final vote on this was done at a regularly scheduled meeting, if we can do so.
Well, I don't disagree with that, Mayor. I think it's a perfect time to do that. Having the first reading on Monday, that gives council until the next meeting. If they have any questions, concerns, or want to go over anything, they can call, talk to Andrew, Stacy, you, or David or I, if they have any questions. And like you said, this is not anything that we haven't known about. It's just something that we've had to be patient with, because the majority of council's seen it. It's just our two new ones that have not. And I feel pretty confident that they can be brought up to speed pretty quickly.
And I know each of our newest council members, Connie, have recently reviewed A Brighter Future, which is our financial analysis from a year ago. So they're up to speed on the old work, and then they'll be exposed to this work, hopefully today or by reviewing it over the weekend.
Okay. It answers all my questions. We got some big stuff to do.
Yes, sir. David, you've been quietly studying these numbers. Does this, in general terms, understanding that these are placekeepers for future, more specific conversations, is this analysis something that you think meets a standard that we can move forward with?
I absolutely do, Mayor. I've seen it, just once, I guess once before. It might have changed a little bit since then. I don't totally recall, but anyway, Andrew sent it to Connie and I asked last week or so, but it does. It's extremely helpful, Mayor. And I agree that we've got to proceed with the insurance premium tax increase Monday. I'm good with the first reading and voting, as soon as we can thereafter. I mean, we've obviously have that timeline. If we don't do it, then, we got to wait a whole nother year. And technically, our plan was to have it in place last year, so we've already missed out on $2 million to some degree, if you want to look at it that way, because we were sensitive to the issue, to businesses and to people that live in the community because of COVID last year. So to me, it's imperative. It's the obvious next step that we have to take, and then we can certainly hone in on the stormwater and trying to deal with that issue. I know Connie and I have talked about that many times, and we're ready to proceed with that. And we realize that dealing with the gross receipts versus the payroll tax is something that's going to take a little bit longer. And we're all going to continue to study that and try to get comfortable with it. But this will certainly allow us to take care of the needs of our employees as far as the pay increases and addressing some of the shortfalls with the employment levels, at least with the police department, I guess would be our first step. The other thing that I can't remember if it was in this slide or not, I apologize if I missed it, but did this talk about the number of employees that we had at one time, which I believe was like 220, or maybe it was more than that. Now it's dropped down to 180 or 190 employees. Is that in this presentation?
I actually have that in front of me. In 1999, it was 218 employees. This is the update we got. And in 2021, we have 186 city employees. That's what I have.
Yeah. That's amazing to me right there. And I don't think that gets enough attention, or I don't think it gets enough praise that the city made that kind of an effort since that period of time to try to cut the expenses. And I know that a lot of people ask us to focus on trying to reduce our expenses. And I can say we've done all kinds of things to try to reduce our expenses. And that's a perfect illustration. I mean, and again, I just don't think it gets enough attention. How can you be one of the fastest, if not the fastest growing community in the state? And instead of your workforce increasing, it's actually gone down that much, which is very significant. And we've done a lot of things to try to streamline. I know the water company especially has taken advantage of some of the technological opportunities, you might say, to try to try to be more efficient. All of our departments have. Certainly, Public Works has as well. I don't mean to leave anybody out. Going to the one arm bandits or whatever the case may be. That's helped. We've done a lot of things. We've refinanced debt. We've restructured things. And I know, Mayor, you've got some other proposals that you're going to bring to us that are going to continue to make us even more efficient, which I'm excited about. So I'm in a good place with this presentation. I want to watch it a couple more times, quite honestly, but I'm good. I mean, it's extremely helpful. It's hard to imagine what we did when we didn't have this kind of information. Now that we're seeing it, it's like, man, how did we even operate? Everything was just so short-sighted before. Now this gives us more of a trajectory to look at over the next few to several years, and what possibilities could happen or play out, based on the numbers, based on the math. So it's very helpful.
I agree with you, David. Having this projection that we've never had before, not really.
Not
projected out.
No, that's right.
We've always looked prior years, but this is very helpful to let us know where we're going.
Yeah.
There's one thing I want to add, and that's that, this is not a new problem, nor is it a problem we really just uncovered.
Mm-hmm.
We've known anecdotally for quite some time as administrators that our first responders have been struggling with staffing. What we've not had up until now is context.
Yeah.
And Mayor, there is one more thing I wanted to point out. There was a last minute fix that apparently didn't make it in, but that number there in the bottom right corner, that decrease in the Toyota incentive, that actually doesn't occur until year 6. That's something that Stacy helped me understand. So that should be a 0.
That actually should be 0. That's correct. And
Stacy
will get that fixed. We were on the phone today, and Stacy looked that up and confirmed that.
That's my fault.
That needs to be adjusted. David, I appreciate your comments about this. We really feel it's our job to provide enough information to the council to see this context, and we haven't been able to do it very well in the past. And if we're going to ask council to take the bold steps that we're asking you to consider, this is what you deserve.
I was thinking that the pension allocation that we're going to have to come up with, are these new numbers? Because they look a little lower. If I'm looking at the right line, they look a little lower than what I had seen before. I was thinking that that it was going to increase by the tune of about $2 million per year here in the next 3 or 4 years. Is that the CERS increase?
Let's see, David.
Yeah, the way we did this, David, I don't know if Stacy wants to chime in here, but I think we've presented this in a little bit different way, and that's why those numbers look different. Stacy, you want to help?
Yeah, I went through and double checked them when I did. So what we did was we compared each year to the current year, as it says in that top right-hand corner. So we're comparing to our 2021 rates. And basically, I think I took our budgeted salaries for 2021 and calculated CERS at the current rate. And then I calculated CERS at the new rate for each respective year and came up with that difference. So we compared current budget year CERS costs to what it would be in each of those new years.
Okay.
So that was just something Andrew he told me to focus on that line in particular to make sure those numbers were correct. So
okay. So were we a little high? I guess we were a little bit high on our prior.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No problem. No problem. Appreciate you double checking it. That's helpful.
But I want to ask a question on top of that, David. Stacy, these current positions, this is just what it would be year 2021 for CERS, but what about what we have to pay in back pay? Is that anywhere in here? Or what, you know, what they're saying, like 1 million, 1.2 million that we have to pay back?
I'm not sure. Are you talking about the liability that we have, or what are you talking
I thought it
about?
was
The
the
back pay?
pension, the pension. Is the pension?
This would just be new
This-
annual cost because the rates are going up.
Yeah,
The annual rates are going up.
okay.
Um,
On this
we
sheet
do
right
have a
here.
pension. Yeah, we do have a
Okay.
pension liability on the books that every city in Kentucky has a pension liability on their books. They're never going to come. Well, I'll never say never, but they're not going to come to us and ask us to write a check for that
That's on
liability.
another slide. I got you. It's on
Yeah.
another slide.
will-
I got you. Thank you.
Discussion of that idea at one point. I think it was conjecture, but there was discussion at the state level of, we got this huge debt. We need to ask all the participating agencies to pay for it.
Right.
And that in a concept turned into a substantial increase in the rates. And it was going to happen all at once. It was going to be, boom, here's your new 50% rate. And then there was some negotiation back and forth. And a year later, we got this phased increase. But it is a huge increase nonetheless.
Okay.
We don't have to go back and pay money. We have to look forward.
Moving
and make up
forward.
the gap.
Okay. I understand.
And after we've made up the gap, the formula, at some point in the future, whether it's 8 years or 10 years or 15, that number, the contribution number will go back down to where it should be in order to maintain. The
Okay.
rate increase is temporary, long-term temporary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Connie's remembering correctly that we added an entry in our audit that shows that long-term liability. But it's not a part of these projections, Connie. The credit that we have to deal with at the Revenue Commission level is real. And we'll have to work with that, but we don't have a pension liability that we have to deal with. It's just something that's on our books.
Okay. I got you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Andrew.
Great questions. I'm sorry, David.
Well, I was just going to say, for anybody that might be watching this or watch this later for the first time, this is something Connie and I, or our group anyway, we've all been aware and familiar with this. So for any of us to say, well, yes, I support this, it's because we've had so much time and so much consideration, so much work put into it. This isn't just like you all are presenting this information to us at this moment, and we're saying, yeah, let's just do it. It's been far more laborious than that, and very serious for an extended period of time, well over
Yes.
a year. So
Absolutely.
anyway, and then I was a part of the group, and I guess I can say this Monday night, when we raised the insurance premium tax to 7%, that was at a time where we were faced with pretty tough, difficult situation, and we needed the revenue. But the only way to get it passed, quite honestly, at that time, was to put a sunset into it. So we kind of had to do it in order to get enough people on board to support it, as I recall anyway.
I was a part of that group too, David.
Yeah.
I do remember that. That is correct.
Good.
So
Well, I'm pleased that the committee feels we're at a point to present this analysis to the council as a reasonable update and be the basis for the action that we're going to ask them to consider about the insurance premium tax and some other presentations that they'll hear even going forward from there.
yeah. And Mayor, I guess the point was, Connie, nor I, nor you, or any of us, want to increase taxes or anything. But it's just, we're in a situation that, unfortunately, it's just something we're going to have to do. At least that's the way I see it moving forward. And I think we're just going to have to take one step at a time. And this one is the next step, I guess, next week. So.
And
I have to agree.
I'm willing to characterize it as a crisis, David. I think we're at that point.
Yeah.
Good. Well,
Very good information.
thank you. And Stacy, I also want to I didn't say this earlier, but this type of analysis doesn't happen by itself. You all have a really talented staff that is willing to, that is both capable and willing to generate analysis of this quality. And I'm real proud of what they put together for you.
Yes, I think Stacy and I'm sure Megan and Andrew, all of them, you know, their input of all that they do, and all of the directors giving you that information to plug it in. You got a good team there, Mayor.
We do. Now, I know we've gone through a lot, but we've got one more big thing to go through. And if we could now shift gears to a presentation about the occupational license tax, how net profits will compare to a gross receipts tax, how the concept works and how it might apply to the city of Georgetown. And just, I've said this before to the council, but this one I think is important because you're going to see information that, for me, confirms that our current net profits tax is not balanced and is not fair. And that some people pay too much and some people pay far too little. And that inequity is something that I think begs for us to address. The other thing is looking at the math. We know that this bold step that we're asking the council to take with the insurance premium tax covers significant needs for year one of a budget. But as we look forward into the budget, there are needs for even additional revenue. And I will say right up front that it is not our intention for a gross receipts tax to be revenue neutral. We think that a gross receipts tax can be done in a way that's more fair, especially to small business and especially to the smaller businesses that are locally owned that struggle the most. But for other higher earning entities, it will increase additional revenue for us. So again, we've done this in the form of a video, again, because there's so much information to get across there. And it also lends itself to being on the YouTube channel and others being able to follow the presentation the same as you all see it. So it's a 12-minute presentation that outlines this issue very well. Andrew, anything else you'd like to add?
Oh, I'm ready to roll.
Please do. And don't plug in your headphones.
All right.
When the city of Georgetown first levied an occupational license tax in 1964, businesses and employees were lumped under one category called occupation and taxed equally on their gross receipts. All persons engaged in an occupation, trade, or business in Georgetown paid 0.1%, 0.3%, or 0.5% of gross receipts, depending on the type of occupation. In 1976, the city repealed the gross receipts tax and split the tax into a net profits tax for businesses and a payroll tax for employees. Net profits means a business's gross revenue minus its expenses. With a few exceptions, anything a business can deduct on its federal tax return can be deducted from its net profits return. Gross receipts means a business's receipts from the sale or lease of goods, services, and property, minus returns and allowances for defective product. A business owes net profits or gross receipts taxes to a taxing jurisdiction based on the percentage of its business that is attributable to work done in the jurisdiction. This is calculated with a two-factor formula based on payroll and sales. For businesses with only payroll or only sales generated in a jurisdiction, only one factor is used. Businesses calculate net profits based on global operations in all jurisdictions, including other local jurisdictions, other states, and even other countries. Let's look at how this affects taxes owed to Georgetown. Let's say Super Worldmart reports $100 billion in global profits for the year 2020. Super Worldmart generated $50 million in sales in Georgetown, and about 0.5% of its global sales and payroll was generated in Georgetown. However, despite record U.S. sales, Super Worldmart spent $150 billion building facilities in the U.S., Europe, and Asia, resulting in a global loss. Super Worldmart reports global net profits of $0. Super Worldmart therefore owes Georgetown $0 in net profit taxes. Note that none of the construction expenses Super Worldmart deducted directly benefited Georgetown. If Georgetown instead levied a gross receipts tax, Super Worldmart's global construction costs would be irrelevant. Assume Super Worldmart had global gross receipts of $99 billion after returns and allowances, and the same 0.05% apportionment to Georgetown. That means Super Worldmart had $49,500,000 in apportioned gross receipts and owes the city of Georgetown $49,500 in gross receipts taxes. In an effort to analyze the equity and efficiency of Georgetown's net profits tax and compare it to a potential gross receipts tax, we looked at actual returns from the last complete tax year for the 4,261 business entities that filed a return. 3,244 of those returns had greater than zero apportioned receipts. We then sorted the business entities by apportioned gross receipts and divided the results into 7 groups, with the smallest group having less than $50,000 in apportioned receipts, and the largest having over $50 million. Finally, we separately sorted the business by NAICS industry groups. Using this data, we performed several analyses to develop useful statistics. Throughout this exercise, we use a business's gross receipts as the measure of how large or small a business is. Note that this, along with the number of employees, is the standard by which the Small Business Administration measures business size. To compare tax burden among the various sized entities, we divide the net profits owed by the business by its gross receipts. The most critical statistic we found was that on average, the smaller a business is, the more that business owed in net profits taxes relative to its gross receipts. Conversely, the larger a business is, the less that business owed in net profits taxes as a percentage of its gross receipts. Those businesses that generated less than $50,000 in apportioned gross receipts paid net profits taxes that averaged 0.35% of their gross receipts. As the size of the business increases, the amount it owes in net profits relative to its gross receipts becomes less. Those businesses that generated more than $50 million in apportioned gross receipts paid an average net profits tax that was just 0.0043% of its gross receipts. That means the smallest businesses in Georgetown on average paid 81 times more net profits taxes relative to their gross receipts than the largest businesses. A common gross receipts tax rate levied by cities is 0.1% of gross receipts. Notice that smaller businesses are paying, on average, significantly more than they would pay under a 0.1% gross receipts tax, and large businesses are paying less. The 45 businesses that had over $10 million in apportioned gross receipts accounted for 91% of total apportioned gross receipts of all businesses, but account for only 42% of net profits taxes owed. Conversely, the 2,740 businesses with less than $500,000 in apportioned gross receipts account for only 1.5% of total gross receipts of all businesses, but account for 27% of net profits taxes owed. Net profits taxes owed varies greatly industry to industry. Industries such as beauty, healthcare, and real estate bear a disproportionately high net profits tax burden, while industries such as manufacturing, trade, and information bear proportionately little net profits tax burden. To see an example of an inequity in net profits taxes, look at the difference between these two signature industries. Manufacturing businesses accounted for 83.9% of the apportioned gross receipts for all industries combined, but owed only 20.3% of the net profits taxes due to Georgetown. Healthcare businesses accounted for only 1.5% of the gross receipts for all industries combined, but owed 18.3% of the net profits taxes due. Now that we've examined some of the inequities of the city's net profits tax, let's talk about ways a gross receipts tax can be implemented and how it would affect the city and its taxpayers. Cities have great flexibility in establishing a gross receipts tax and have a variety of tools that can shape the fairness and effectiveness of the tax. A cap on the total gross receipts tax owed by any business may be particularly important in a city where one or more business entities would bear a disproportionately high burden compared to all other taxpayers. A floor could also be employed to ensure that all businesses, regardless of size, pay a minimum fee for the purpose of conducting business in the city. In Georgetown, there are almost 900 businesses that would owe less than $10 in gross receipts taxes. A city could also choose to enact different tax brackets, similar to federal income taxes, applying higher rates to businesses with higher gross receipts. Of course, a city could combine some or all of these tools. Combining some of the tools we just discussed, let's look at the revenues the hypothetical gross receipts tax would generate. Based on the returns data from 2018, businesses owed Georgetown $1.7 million in net profits taxes. If the city had a flat 0.1% gross receipts tax with a $1 million cap, only one business would have its tax capped, and all businesses would owe $4.3 million in gross receipts taxes. Increasing the cap to $2 million would still affect only one entity, and the tax would generate an additional $1 million. At a 0.2% gross receipts tax rate with a $1 million cap, still only one entity would have its taxes capped. All businesses would owe $7.5 million in gross receipts taxes. Again, increasing the cap to $2 million would have affected only one entity and would generate additional tax owed of $1 million. Continuing the analysis, if the city had a 1% gross receipts tax capped at $100,000, 8 businesses would have their taxes capped and the tax would generate $2.9 million. Increasing the cap to $200,000 would cap the taxes of 2 businesses and generate $461,000 of additional revenue. With a bracketed gross receipts tax at a rate of 0.1% for receipts up to $5 million and a 0.2% rate for receipts above $5 million and a $1 million cap, those businesses would have paid $6.3 million in gross receipts taxes. If the cap is reduced to $200,000, 8 businesses would have their taxes capped and the tax would generate $4.6 million. Looking, for example, at a flat 0.1% gross receipts tax with a $1 million cap, businesses with less than $500,000 in apportioned gross receipts would, on average, owe less under a gross receipts tax compared to a net profits tax. Businesses with more than $500,000 in apportioned gross receipts will, on average, pay more under a gross receipts tax. Of the 3,244 businesses with apportioned gross receipts, 1,411 would have paid less under a gross receipts tax versus a net profits tax. Of the 1,803 businesses that would have paid more under a gross receipts tax, half would have seen an increase of less than $50 each. This analysis could be performed based on any particular gross receipts setup. Here are a few more facts about gross receipts taxes and net profits taxes to keep in mind. Smaller businesses tend to be local businesses, whereas the largest businesses are predominantly regional, national, or global businesses. A gross receipts tax is much easier for businesses to calculate and report. Calculating net profits taxes may require detailed knowledge of federal tax law and often requires the services of an accountant. For the same reasons, a gross receipts tax is far easier for the city to administer. A gross receipts tax puts businesses and employees on equal footing, as both pay a tax based on income before any deductions. Over the last 25 years, employees have paid 74% of the occupational license taxes owed to Georgetown. 34 cities have enacted a gross receipts tax. Only cities can levy a gross receipts tax. Counties and schools cannot.
That's a lot of information too. My brain's fried. I'm kidding.
Connie, it is, the totality of our agenda today is just unfair. It's so,
Much needed. Much
it's so
needed.
much information. But this is a conversation starter.
Absolutely.
This is to understand, to start taking questions. Last year at this time, we talked about, actually what I was promoting at this time last year was an increase to the payroll tax, because we have, there's substantial revenue needs that have to be realized. We knew when we recommended an increase to the payroll tax that would throw our tax structure even further out of balance, because we're already too dependent upon payroll taxes. We're overly dependent upon payroll taxes. So, and some businesses felt strongly that their employees should not be taxed additionally. So we've looked at other ways that we think are more fair and more balanced, that we need to start thinking about. So I thought it was a pretty good initial presentation to understand the concepts and the fact that it has immense flexibility on what council decides it would ultimately look like, with ceilings and floors and rates that can be changed, and just the flexibility is endless if the council gets comfortable with the concept of a gross receipts tax. And that's the conversation that we look forward to having with this committee and ultimately the full city council.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. I don't have any questions right now. The way Andrew presented it, I'm under the impression that we can structure it about any way we want to and put any kind of a cap on it that we want to. We just, he just gave us some various numbers.
Exactly.
But to generate the revenue.
These are just examples to explain the concept. And any floor, any ceiling, it's just the big concept, Connie, is that everybody pays something every year, rather than some of our biggest big box stores having years when they don't contribute to the net profit at all.
And I understand that, and the idea of not really being able to really depend on net profits and hard to use that in our budget. We have to be very conservative when we do that, because it's not recurring revenue, and spend that for salaries or whatever, and then we're in bad shape. So my understanding of the gross receipts tax is equivalent of our payroll tax, that it is something that we can look at and project, and that would help us balance our budget even better. That's my understanding.
You landed on one of the most important features of the gross receipts tax is it's predictable. We can budget for that income and count on it being there where we can't count on net profits. And in the reverse, companies can count on what their gross receipts tax will be, and they can anticipate that for their budgets. If we establish caps for some businesses, then they know exactly what their rate will be, and they don't have the possibility of a year when their net profits tax spiked up incredibly high. We have a cap for them, and they can predict, we can predict. Both sides need that certainty.
Yeah, I get that. It'll be interesting to take it further and showing it to the rest of the council and getting an understanding of it for sure.
Thank you. Andrew, you've kind of worked on putting this together. Is this about what we wanted to accomplish today? With the committee being aware of this, it now being available to the public, and we're now in a position to present it to the council.
Yeah. I think one thing that I would add is, we talked about insurance premium having a deadline. Obviously, gross receipts tax, switching to a gross receipts tax doesn't have a deadline, but it is something that wouldn't go into effect immediately. You would have to build in time for our revenue commission to change everything around, make all new forms, make all the adjustments, notify all the businesses. We talked about it ideally coinciding with businesses' start of a new fiscal year. And that way they have the whole year to prepare for it, and they don't have to do 2 different tax returns. And, that's typically January 1. So if we talked about this for a long time, we're going to get to a certain point where implementing it will require us to delay the start date.
So how long do you think it would take the Revenue Commission to actually generate that and make people aware? 3 months?
We talked about giving ourselves a minimum of 6 months.
6 months? Okay.
So July 1, if we wanted to implement it for a January 1, 2022 date, we wouldn't want to push it much past July, in fairness to them and to the businesses.
Okay.
So yes, Andrew, I want to acknowledge your point, but I also want to be clear that with today's presentation and what we will ask for on Monday is almost immediate action on the insurance premium tax. But we're not asking for immediate action on the occupational license tax. That will be something that will be discussed, considered. We realize that we can't hold it off forever, or it'll never take a place, but it is not an action item in our immediate future.
Right. Okay.
Mayor, a quick point. I know I've mentioned this to you, but I had the chance to speak with Jessica down at the Revenue Commission. And one of the things that really hit home with me was the fact that we've got, based on her information, she said we've got about 4,700 businesses in Scott County as a whole that are registered businesses with the Revenue Commission, but only in 2018, only 12% of those businesses actually paid a net profits tax. And that's amazing. That's a huge disparity that only 12% would be paying that tax. So it definitely justifies to me the more fairness of the gross receipts tax. I hope that we and our corporate partners in the chamber can all get on board and move in the same direction with this.
Going to take a lot of education, and we begin today.
That's right. That's right.
Good. It's good information, Mayor.
A lot of that falls on you, but I know you're going to be in front of a lot of people, and we'll do what we can to help as well, Mayor.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you all. Stacy, have we covered everything that you intended for us to get done today?
Yes, I believe so.
You've got everything you need to prepare for Monday evening?
Mhm. Yes.
Mayor, can I ask a quick question, maybe of Andrew, if this is something we can even talk about on here? But I understand that there's a couple of large big box retailers in town that are challenging their property assessment, their PV assessment. Is that something we can discuss, Andrew, or would you
No,
prefer
it's
not?
not on our agenda.
Okay.
And I don't know anything about it, so
Okay.
I don't know how I would be able to contribute to the conversation.
Okay.
But it's something we can certainly look into.
Okay.
Okay, and I guess before we adjourn, the other thing I would like to just kind of plug again is just keep it on the radar, is that I would really like to educate and start looking at the stormwater as well. I just want to keep it on our radar.
Coming, Connie.
I'm sorry?
It's coming. It's ready to go. We're just trying to figure out the timing.
I know. Oh, that's perfect then. That's good to hear. Thanks, Andrew. I understand we got a lot on our plate.
Yes,
I get
ma'am.
it.
Yeah, I thought if we took this meeting and then added the stormwater utility on top of it, that we'd all run screaming from the room. So, but
Okay.
it is, you all have asked for it. We've talked about it for years, and we do have the presentation ready. It's just we've got so much to talk about these days.
I understand. It's perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. David, Connie, is there anything? This has been a real good meeting. Is there anything else we need to cover today?
Not for me, Mayor. I'm good right now.
Likewise, I am too. Appreciate everything. I'm going to keep studying over the weekend and look forward to
Me
seeing
too.
everybody Monday.
And we'll make you sit through it all again Monday.
All right.
Sounds good.
But, thank you for your attention today.
Okay. Thank you, guys. I'll talk to you later.
Thank
Peace
you.
out.